The topic for today is do not worry. And it always amazes me. The music ministry almost every week sings a brand new offering song that they've never played before, never sung before, and they pull it together. And I'm not sure if you were able to hear all of the lyrics of the song, but it was based on these verses in Matthew chapter 6. And I'm going to share this excerpt from the Bible. The topic is do not worry. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or stow away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and yet your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. So it's the beginning of August. And I know for all you families that have school-age children or are going into college or even grandchildren of school-aged, you know that there's like a shift in the air, right? The kind of endless days of summer are not so endless anymore. I know as a parent, I've started getting so many emails from schools like, register for athletics, you need these supplies, pay your fees. And I know that can be a stressful time for families. Maybe your children are going to a new school this year, or maybe they're graduating out of elementary and going to middle, or out of middle and going to high school. Or maybe they're trying something new this year, a new sport or something they haven't done. And if you don't have school-age children, I'm sure you are not free of anxieties or worries either. I feel like even if you don't have school, there's just always a shift as this time of year comes. It's like, okay, going back, if you did some traveling, traveling is finishing. We're getting back into the flow of work. Or it could just be other things you have in your life. You have relationships to work on, or I know a number of families in our community are moving and coming up soon, and I'm sure there's a lot of preparations and things to figure out in the move. And no matter where we are in life, as humans, I feel like we just manage to find a lot of things to get involved with and to have to worry about. And I feel like for me, I can easily be caught between two sort of attitudes around it. At times I can be like, it is what it is. It's going to be what it's going to be. And I just do what I can, and things will work out in one way or another. And we'll just have to see what happens. And then I can quickly shift to this other attitude, which is, I have to make sure everything is perfectly in line. I have to be prepared for every possibility. I have to prepare my kids for anything that could happen to them. I need to make sure that we have enough money for this. I have to make sure that we have the right clothes for this photo shoot. I have to make, and it can kind of spiral into a never-ending desire to control everything so it works out the way I want it to. But I find it's good not to just lean on our own understanding, not to be completely carefree and not caring about things or preparing, but also to not get OCD and want to control everything, right? And I find that the divine principle and the Bible actually have so much to give us in terms of putting things into perspective and to find the right balance, to both empower us to do what we can do and to help us find peace, even when things around us are not peaceful. There's actually so many stories in the Bible. I Googled, what people in the Bible were worried about the future. It's pretty much everybody. Immediately off the top of my head, I'm thinking of Jacob going to meet Esau, right? He's like, I'm going to go meet my brother. He sends a messenger ahead and finds out his brother is preparing an army to come kill him. And yet he knows he has to go forward anyway, right? So he has this showdown prayer with God and is like, God, I don't know, I'm really scared, but you've made promises to me, and you've made promises to my descendants, and if that's going to happen, I know I need to trust in you, right? So he calms the worries he has, he trusts in God, and at the same time, he does what he needs to do. He prepares well. He makes 2 camps. He sends people ahead, and they bow every 7 steps. It's not like he's just like, hey, bro, how's it going? He prepared, but he also trusted God. But another story I wanted to share is of Moses. And some of you know the story of Moses. I find it very relatable. So this takes place in Exodus. This is after Moses, was raised in the Pharaoh's palace, killed the Egyptian, and fled and to live with his relatives. And he just becomes a shepherd. So he's been prepared for a really big job. But at this point, he's just a shepherd. And while he's shepherding, he sees a burning bush. But the bush itself isn't burning. There's just fire. And so he says, I'm going to go check this out. This is something really special. And at that point, God's voice, right, it comes to him at the burning bush. It tells him to take off his sandals. This is on holy ground. And he calls on Moses to take the Israelites out of Egypt. This is a big calling and responsibility. But then Moses starts asking questions. He starts off, Moses said to God, well, suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. And they ask me, well, what is his name? What should I tell them? And God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he actually says a lot more about how to talk to the leaders of the Israelites and how to convince them that God has given him this mission. I skipped some of that. And then Moses says, well, if they don't believe me or listen to me and say, the Lord did not appear to you, I interpose my own notes here. Then God basically says, well, here, take your staff and throw it on the ground. And it's like an experiment. Moses throws it on the ground. It turns into a snake. And he runs away from the snake. And God says, it's okay, pick it up by the tail. Moses picks it up by the tail, turns back into a staff. And God says, if they don't believe you, do this and show them that God gives you the power to do this, and they'll believe you. And then he's like, but what if they still don't? And then God said, okay, well, take some water and pour it on the sand. So then Moses does it, and it turns into blood. And he's like, do this in front of the Israelites, and then they will know that God is with you. And he's like, oh, okay. But then he says, Moses said to the Lord, pardon your servant, Lord. I have never been eloquent, neither in the past, nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. The Lord said to him, who gave human beings their mouths? Who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight or makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak and will teach you what to say. But Moses said, pardon your servant, Lord. Please send someone else. Then the Lord's anger burned against Moses. When I first read this, I think, maybe the bush will explode. Like, he's just had enough. But even though the Lord's anger burns, he still helps him. The Lord's anger burned against Moses, and he said, what about your brother Aaron the Levite? I know he can speak well. He is already on his way to meet you, and he will be glad to see you. You shall speak to him and put words in his mouth. I will help both of you speak and will teach you what to do. He will speak to the people for you, and it will be as if he were your mouth and as if you were God to him. But take this staff in your hand so you can perform the signs with it. And when I read this, I relate so much with God. If you have children, anybody know this feeling? If you have children and they're worried about something, going to a new, I know, so for example, Mia, my daughter, did a lot of new things this year. She started Western Airs horseback riding. She is going to a new high school. She's starting volleyball and basketball and having to show up to a practice not ever having met any of the coaches or any of the students. And before each of these times, she's been like, but Mom, what if they don't like me? Or what if I'm no good at this? Or what if I don't like it? And every time I'm like, well, we'll start off by saying hello to people and smile. Like, I'm going to give you some tools. I said, but what if they, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, you can do this. You've got this. It'll be fine. And I love this at the end. God gives them all this, like, reassurance. And then he's like, but don't forget to take the staff in your hand. Like, remember what I told you. You can perform the signs with it. You'll be fine. And, I feel like as a parent, and from my situation, I feel like I have a broader perspective, right? I know that not everybody's going to hate my daughter when she walks in, right? There might be challenges, but I also know that she's capable, right? And whether or not she likes it, the day is going to come when she's got to go and show up and do it anyway. So I'm going to try to prepare her for it and encourage her for it. But I feel pretty confident it's going to be fine. But, she doesn't feel that. And so I feel like God is like that with us so many times too, right? God can see more than what we can see. God can see the potential possible outcomes. He knows what we're capable of, and he encourages us in that way, knowing what kind of blessings are waiting for us, or knowing what things can be restored because of us. And he's like excited for us. And we're like, but, I can feel like it could be very hard for our children, or just like for Moses, to hear God's words, or to hear my words as a parent, and to trust them and believe them and be relieved. But in the end, Moses did it. He just had to do his best. Our kids have to do it. We have to do it. But it's easier if we can, right, listen to God's words, if we can trust, have faith in them, and also take courage in them and to do our best. So from the verse in Matthew, right, about Jesus is reminding us, like, look at the lilies in the field, right? God prepares everything for them to grow as they need to grow and to do what they need to do. and the grass in the field gets cut and thrown on a fire the next day, right? And that's, if God prepares everything for the lilies of the field, how much more is God preparing things for us, his precious children? How much more is God taking care of us? But I also think it's important to remember at the same time that it doesn't mean that God will just do everything for us. I do know some people of faith who just feel like, oh, I don't need, like, God's got it. Everything will be fine. I'm just going to sit here and wait for things to work out for me. Right? That's not the message either. In the divine principle, we learn that there's a balance between our portion of responsibility and everything else that God is doing to prepare for us and to take care of us and to pave the way for us. So I'm going to go into the divine principle. This is from the section of predestination, and I feel like it's very helpful to put it into perspective. To what extent does God predestine the unfolding of the events in the providence? Although God's will to realize the purpose of the providence of restoration is absolute, right? So God's goal never changes and will be fulfilled. But God predestines the process of its accomplishment conditionally. So that means he's not just going to push it through. The condition is contingent upon the 5% responsibility of the central figure, of the person, of us, which must be completed in addition to the 95% responsibility of God. The proportion of 5% is used to indicate that the human portion of responsibility is extremely small when compared to God's portion of responsibility. Yet, for human beings, this 5% is equivalent to 100% of our effort. I feel like this is such a good imagery to show, right? We cannot do everything by ourselves. We cannot line up everything to work out perfectly for us. We can't control other people. We can't, in order for things to go exactly as we want, we'd have to control so many things that we can't even see. We'd have to control the events that lead up to timing. It's just mind-blowing of what God is already foreseeing and taking care of for us. We've got a little bit to do, and yet it requires all of our effort. It is written in the Bible, "The prayer of the faith will save the sick man. Your faith has made you well. And for everyone who asks, receives, and he who seeks, finds, and to him who knocks, it will be opened." These verses confirm that God predestines his will to be fulfilled, contingent upon human beings completing their portion of responsibility, right? We have to do the knocking. We have to ask. We have to seek before we find. We should recognize from these examples how minuscule the human portion of responsibility is in comparison to God's toil and grace, right? God has worked so hard to bring us to this point, and we receive so much grace. Right? We're, I think, in so many ways incapable. God knows what we're capable of and what we're incapable of, and he gives us grace for all these areas that we can't do ourselves. Which is his portion of responsibility. On the other hand, when we consider the fact that over and over again, central figures in the providence could not cope with their responsibility, we can appreciate how extremely difficult it was for them to fulfill even this comparatively small portion, right? I think when I read these stories of Moses, it's easy for me to come on, Moses. Why? Just believe, just do it. And if we know Moses' whole story, there's times when he did get frustrated. He got angry. He got impatient with God. And he, instead of tapping the stone with his staff, he smacked it hard 3 times. And so just to fulfill his proportion of responsibility took so much self-control and effort. So we can really appreciate and also have compassion towards the figures of history, right, who were able to make one step forward for God. Adam and Eve were to become the good ancestors of humanity, conditional upon fulfilling their responsibility to obey God's commandment not to eat of the fruit. So that was their responsibility, and it was going to require 100% of their effort. Accordingly, God did not absolutely predestine that Adam and Eve would become good ancestors, right? He couldn't make them. That was his purpose, but he couldn't make them. The same holds for all fallen people. All fallen people can become the ideal people God has foreordained them to be, but only when they complete their responsibility. So it's a double-edged sword, right? It's empowering to know that there's nobody who is predestined to fail, right? There's nobody who is outside of God's reach. There's nobody who is too far gone. And at the same time, it's not just going to be done for us, right? We have to take responsibility. Therefore, God does not predestine in absolute terms what kind of people they actually turn out to be. To what extent does God determine the fate of an individual? The fulfillment of God's will through an individual absolutely requires that he complete his responsibility. Hence, even though God predestines someone for a particular mission, right? Part of our vision statement is that each person has a purpose, right? Each person has the ability to find what God's calling for them is in this world. And our goal as a community is to help facilitate that. So even though God predestines someone for a particular mission, God's 95% responsibility and the person's 5% responsibility must be accomplished together before the person can complete his given mission and fulfill God's will. If the person does not complete his responsibility, he cannot become the person God has purposed him to be. So it really is this partnership and balance. So for me, what these, Bible stories, what the Bible verse about the lilies in the field, and what these excerpts from the Divine Principle tells us is that God is with us. He has plans for us. He has a purpose for us. He walks with us through our trials and difficulties. In that first verse I shared, it says, don't worry about what you eat or what you're going to wear. These things are going to be taken care of for you. But it also acknowledges it's not just going to be easy, right? Each day has a trouble of its own. But at the same time, what I gather from putting all this together is that even though it may not be easy, God is walking with us through our challenges. God is taking care of the things that God can take care of, right? When we fulfill our responsibility, we may not see how that's going to lead us to the other side. But if we can do that, God can take care of the rest, right? And as for what we should do, it doesn't mean that we should just lay around and expect God to do everything for us, to take care of everything. Right? In the Bible stories, we see that God is always calling somebody to go somewhere and to do something and to step out in faith and to do things that, from their perspective, might seem impossible. To part the Red Sea, sacrifice their son Isaac. These are things that God is asking people to do that, from a human perspective, there's no way to do it. But it shows that God has a plan for us. And so that we do our best to fulfill our responsibilities according to what we know of the plan. And at the same time, we can also recognize that even with all of our effort, it's still a small percentage of everything that needs to be done. So we can acknowledge, right, that I can't do everything, and also acknowledge that we need God and we can trust God to work with us. There will be times when the path might seem open and clear and be like, okay, if I do this, then this will happen, and then that will happen. But there's times when it's like, I just don't know what's around the corner. We don't know what the final result will be. God wants us to do our best according to what we know, according to the truth, right? And he doesn't want us to stress beyond that. I'm sure you know, stress is a killer, right? All these articles state that stress is the leading cause of heart issues and weight gain and all of the things that make it, and depression, and thousands of years ago, they knew that in the Bible. They said, what, can you add a single hour to your life by worrying? We try, but we can't. But I also find that, when we're stressing and we're trying to figure out how to manage everything, it actually gives God less space to work with us, doesn't it? Doesn't stress fill your mind? It feels your atmosphere. And there's almost no space for anything besides stress. So I find a better approach is first examine the truth, right? What is God's word? What does God say? What can I do according to that? And then how can I let go of the rest? And then that can create more space for God to work with us, but also for us to feel it. I think God is always trying to work with us. And a lot of times I go through a stressful period, and then looking back, I'm like, oh, God was actually there the whole time. He was helping me. I couldn't appreciate it in the moment. But I'm getting better at leaving space for God and knowing that he's walking with me even through difficult times. So I have a couple of quotes to finish up from our founder, Reverend Moon, which I feel like are a good way to tie it together. Peace, happiness, freedom, and hope only exist on the foundation of unification. How can you be free when your body is not united with your mind? And then this next quote addresses the mind. When you are calm, there is a place deep within your heart where your mind can be at ease. Your mind should be able to go to that place where it can rest, right? In any situation. After you rest there and reawaken, your senses become very sharp. So I feel like that between these two, what I get from this is in any circumstances that we're in, God has designed us to be able to go to a place of peace and center ourselves, right? To be able to go back to God and kind of let everything else fall away and realize, okay, this is truth. This is what needs to happen. When our mind can be centered, then we can unite our body to follow our mind. And if we're doing that, that's how we fulfill our responsibility, and we can give the rest to God. So I guess the takeaway here is whatever season you're going into, whether it's school or a move or a new job or anything that might be challenging you or stressing you out. First, right, take some time to center your mind on God. Then you can take action based on what you know to be right. And then it's easier to leave the rest to God, right? We take one day at a time. Each day will have its own challenges. We can't worry about the ones that come next, right? If we take care of our responsibility now, right? True Father said, one of my favorite speeches, right? If you can be the victor now in this very moment, then you'll be the victor at the end, right? But we have to conquer today. I can conquer this moment. I can be victorious in my relationship with whoever is in front of me right now. I can be responsible for that. And then tomorrow I can do it again. and then God can take care of the rest. So I hope that whatever season that you're in, that you can take some time to let all of the noise fall away, to center on God, and then be empowered to take whatever the next step is for you. All right, please join me in prayer. Heavenly Parent, good morning. Thank you for a beautiful Sunday. So grateful to be here with our family and friends, all these beautiful children of yours. Heavenly Parent, you have been guiding them their whole life through many ups and downs and through valleys and over mountaintops and around corners that we don't know what's on the other side, and yet still we're all here and still looking for you and still looking for your guidance and hoping to find the strength to fulfill our responsibilities. God, thank you so much for working with us this whole time and never giving up on us, never losing your purpose and belief in us that we can fulfill our purpose. Heavenly Parent, you are our loving Heavenly Parent, and pray that we can trust in that. Whatever we might be feeling in our circumstances, your love never changes for us. What you have prepared for us never changes. And pray that we can look inside to find the strength to fulfill our little portion of responsibility, to not only just do what's right or fulfill our responsibility or our purpose, but knowing that that will actually lead us closer to you and your heart, and to experiences of true love and to true happiness, so that it's not just a burden to do what's right, but that we're actually excited and feel called to keep moving towards you and to never give up. And please be with us as we step out into this week and each day. And I offer this prayer in my name, Michael and Adonia Hentrick, a Blessed Central family. Amen and adieu. Okay, thank you so much.